welcome back to the Cryptid Adventurers. I'm Zak.
And I'm Buzz. And in this week's episode, we are talking about
Werewolves.
Yes, so in particular, we're talking about one particular werewolf, or shall I say, werewolf sighting, or in fact, sightings.
Yeah,
of
sighting, plural.
Possibly sightings of the same werewolf. Well, it's known as werewolf, okay, but we could be talking dogman. But
that's what we're going to discuss.
We'll come
in
back
this
to that
particular
in a
episode.
little bit. But let's start off with the actual sightings themselves. So, as I say, just up the road from us, you well know the place I'm talking about. It's
RAF Alconbury.
Alconbury, that's right. It's right next to Huntingdon, just off the A1, and it literally is a stone's throw from us.
It's a US Air Force base.
And that's why locally we tend to refer to it as the American Werewolf of Alconbury.
That's probably why I titled this video that.
Yeah, and it's quite apt really, because the thing is the majority of the reports, well, pretty much all the reports that we've come across over the years, have all been from American servicemen. And so let's kind of rattle through those.
Yes.
So
and see what we think about them.
Yeah. So report number one was from a mechanic that was working on an F5 aircraft, and that report, he said that a kind of a hairy humanoid had come close to the plane, and it was so terrifying that he'd basically climbed into the plane and stayed there. Yeah,
and when somebody else didn't come,
I think what it was is
to get him or something.
He was meant to report in.
Yes,
because
that's it.
I think about after an hour or a certain period of time, it was like, well, we haven't heard from him. Yeah. So then they sent out a truck to see, what was going on in case.
See if he was in trouble.
Yeah, or communication.
Which, I mean, to be honest, he kind of thought he was.
But the communications could have gone down. But so they went out to check and found him cowering in the plane. Second one was two mechanics, in fact, and they were working on a plane, funnily enough.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Well, it's an Air Force base.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Again, they reported a strange, hairy, humanoid-type creature. And so then you've got two individuals that both saw the same thing
on this particular sighting.
That's right, and that was I believe that report was on the north side of the base. Now it's interesting because it kind of comes in. I'm sure the topography, or shall I say, the forestry has changed over the years, because a lot of these reports date back to the 1970s. Yeah, and if you look on Google Maps, to the north of Alconbury there is a woodland forest. Yep. But I wasn't successful in finding any kind of images, because obviously we're talking the 70s, showing
an aerial view.
An aerial view showing the extent of the forest around that area.
Or to how it's been affected now, obviously. Deforestation's probably been a thing.
So I think the woodland now, from the aerial view from Google as it stands, it's not huge. Okay. But the reports do say that this thing was on the north side of the base.
It's interesting that you bring up, obviously, the forest. Now, to me, I've seen the aerial view of that forest as it is at the moment, and from what I can deduce from that is, I really don't think this is going to be a creature that is going to be in wolf form, whether it be a werewolf or indeed dogman, which it could be. It's not going to be in that form all of the time, because otherwise it would have been seen far more, and it would have been dealt with.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. So you're basically saying that, well, it certainly is not enough forest there for it to disappear and hide away. Yeah. So, so then an interesting one, right? So for our third case study on this, we have a report where there's two sergeants. Okay, a sergeant, I believe his name was Randy Lee, and a Sergeant Jackson, who were both patrolling with dogs. Okay, so they're patrolling the base with dogs when there was a report of a possible intruder by the towers, where they monitor the watchtowers. So they went over there to see, just in case there was still, I think they had workmen on site, so they just went to go over there. And again, they were then came face to face with this hairy figure. Interesting enough, they had two patrol dogs with them.
Yeah.
And according to the report, the 2 dogs were absolutely terrified.
Now that is a very key thing to this particular sighting, because that is not something that you would expect. These are going to be trained dogs, trained guard dogs.
From their...
they're going to be scared of nothing, except it is something that is bigger and meaner than them.
Yeah, so from their statement, they said the dogs were terrified and frantic to get away from that position. And then they watched this creature and witnessed it leaping over 2 barbed wire perimeter fences, last seen entering the North Woods.
That's going to be a big jump. So,
well, that's it.
Imagining
it cleared the 2 fences supposedly
in one go.
I wasn't there.
Okay. So that's quite interesting that you say that it has like a massive leap. That would indicate some kind of paranormal.
Yeah, I mean, you usually get the barbed wire fences who've got that sort of like raked top on.
Yeah, they are supposed to be impenetrable.
Well, they're not totally impenetrable. They are. The whole point is you have that overhang. So if you climb up the fence, you've got an overhang. Which normally what you'd do is you'd throw some carpet or something over the barbed wire or razor wire.
We do not recommend that.
Don't recommend it. But if you throw carpet over something like that, it does allow you to get hold and clamber over.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you're on the inside of the fence, you're going out over the rake. I'm not saying that a werewolf suddenly threw some carpet on it, but the thing is, you're not going up over an overhang. You're actually going the opposite way, which it'd be easier to get out than to get in.
It's interesting because bring up this this jumping thing. I think of all these sightings, this is the hardest thing for me to personally believe.
Okay.
Because most things can't jump that height and distance.
Unless they are in a Chinese kung fu movie. Because then they can literally jump over buildings.
But we're not talking movies at this particular point in the episode.
We're talking about a sighting, and it said that it cleared 2 fences. Let's be honest, Zach.
Yeah.
We don't know. I'm thinking 10-foot tall barbed wire topped fencing.
Yeah.
It could be different to that.
Yeah. We're just going from what are
it just says
stereotypical
in the report
imagery of
from the 2 sergeants. It said that the creature cleared 2 perimeter fences.
Yeah.
Okay.
It says perimeter, so that's I would imagine on a base like that,
and it
would have been pretty high.
And they said that it was seen entering the North Woods. Then we're moving on to our 4th one, okay, which was foggy night supposedly.
Yep.
And there was a call over the radio to one of the guards on duty that a possible intruder was on the base. So they went out in a truck to basically where this individual had been spotted. And as I say, it was foggy, so the particular guard in his report wound down the window. Didn't have electric windows back then, I presume. Wound out the window, only to be then looking out the window to see through the fog if he could see anybody, to be then confronted with this creature up close.
Yep.
Okay, it's meant to have had a short muzzle and glaring eyes, which then screamed at him or howled.
Quickly roll the window back up.
Okay, and shot off. And it was also spotted by another guard, it said. And again jumped the perimeter fence.
Again, going back to the jumping.
I believe in that report, they also said they watched it for about 30 seconds, slowly moving through the woods until it went outside.
Well, that's a bit creepy.
That's a bit creepy. And then let's jump to the final report, number 5, where a 20-year-old chap who was stationed on the base at the time, he again spotted this creature. I think he was patrolling, if I recall, he was patrolling the sort of weapons storage area on the base, and literally came across this creature.
Yet again,
which became startled, and it again charged off and jumped the perimeter fence. So all seems to be heading in the same direction, this north side of the base.
Yeah. So talking about all these particular instances, maybe it's a time to try and unpack this, because in every instance, it seems to be the fact that a hairy humanoid figure is described. They are all very similar descriptions.
They are similar descriptions. There's no mention of any clothing or anything, so you are imagining a you know, some kind of dogman, wolfman creature. There is one which up close said that it had a muzzle, howled or screamed at him. Obviously, you've got powerful enough legs to bound over the perimeter fence, supposedly.
Spriggy or Jack or something like that.
You know, and not just seen by one individual. You know, sometimes it's more than one individual at the time.
So going to that description, though, it's obviously humanoid, so it's going to be walking upright. It's not going to be, if I use our little props here,
we have some
as
props.
a descriptive example.
So this would be your typical four sort of quadrupedal Kessler werewolf from American Werewolf in London.
Yep.
Then we got the more upright
wolf-like thing from.
That's a Doctor Who one.
It's a Doctor Who one. It's actually quite a good figure, actually. But it's called a lupine wavelength hemivoriform, which is an alien. And I'm not saying that these are going to be aliens in this particular instance.
Well, I know, but you've got to kick something like this around, because you have the old myths of werewolf, Anglo-Saxon for basically werewolf. Man-wolf is basically what that means. That's where it comes from, the Anglo-Saxon, which kind of leads us on to
the final article here.
The universal
Wolfman, the classic
Wolfman.
Long Taney Jr. example.
Excuse me, I'm having a drink.
From these descriptions of this hairy humanoid, in my mind, obviously you said about the muzzle, I'm kind of picturing something between the Wolfman, Long Taney Jr. and the lupine wavelength hemivoriform from Doctor Who.
Yeah.
That's kind of a combination of those as opposed to the Castle werewolf.
Well, it's very interesting. So let's briefly look at what is a werewolf, and you know, we could talk for hours on this.
Exactly.
So we're going to try and kind of condense this down,
or we can break it up into similar videos.
So but I mean, a werewolf or a man wolf. A lot of mythology, it sort of comes a bit like from the Scandinavian berserkers, where you put on a bear skin and take on the persona of that creature,
the characteristics,
and the same that you put on a wolf skin and take on the persona. You have kind of the mythology around that. It's a cursed person who's been bitten by a werewolf, and that curse means that they change into a wolf, or does that person take on kind of wolfen characteristics themselves?
Well, that's the thing. Is by that what you just said about curses, does that not give way to like other speculation if it's that kind of includes witchcraft and things? Is it a curse put on somebody? Is the change out of choice, or is it out of
I think that's
being cursed?
I think that's
being forced to.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of where we've got to kind of separate between talking about the wolf man or a werewolf and dog man. You see, where werewolves tend to be perceived as more of a supernatural creature, a human that can change shape, whereas a dog man is simply that. It's a canine.
It's born a dog man.
It's born a dog man. It stays a dog man. If it bites somebody, they don't turn into a dog man. It's a creature of its own right, but it is a canine rather than being a vicious, bloodthirsty wolf that wants to rip your throat out.
So a similar comparison to this would be much like a dog man is like a fully canine thing, doesn't change.
No.
You could compare it to
the
likes of Bigfoot, which is a Sasquatch, which is its own thing. It doesn't change from a man into a Bigfoot.
No,
it's not just its soul.
Bigfoot is not, unless there are people. I mean, there are a lot of theories on Bigfoot. From obviously being a creature which is very solitary and it does have a family structure and lives out in the middle of nowhere, to ones that come through portals in time, things like that, interdimensional creatures.
Perhaps a topic for another video.
So I'm thinking from these reports of the Alconbury werewolf, it's been tagged as a werewolf, but it in the classical sense, it doesn't seem to act like a werewolf.
Right.
Yeah, I think there was a report. I'm not sure because I couldn't find this one out at the time where somebody again in a plane and they were scared stiff because they'd seen this thing, and it supposedly left scratches on the cockpit. I couldn't clarify that. If you know about that one, put it in the comments.
We'd love to know.
Yeah, but from the reports that I've spoken about, even when confronted up close with the one that it howled or screamed, as he said, at him, they all ran away. Right?
Okay.
So you think that if this is a supernatural creature which has got a bloodlust for human flesh, that especially guards. I mean, if it can
I've got some theories. I've got some theories brewing in my brain.
If it can terrify, if it can terrify well-trained guard dogs, and they want to run away. Then a solitary guard on patrol or a mechanic in a plane. I mean, obviously these people were terrified because they locked themselves in a plane.
Yeah, but there were no physical attacks.
No physical attacks that we know.
So, based upon what
apart from possibly that last one I mentioned.
What you've just
but I couldn't.
There wasn't actually damage really inflicted.
No, but that supposedly scratches on the canopy of the plane, but I couldn't verify that one.
So, based upon what you just said, my brain is telling me that, assuming this is actually a werewolf, this is a change that is occurring through choice as opposed to, being cursed by something.
Okay.
It is choosing not to actively attack anyone. To scare, yes, to a degree, but not actually to attack anyone.
Okay, so I've got to ask, further what you're saying, I've got to ask these questions. It's being seen on an airbase. Okay, whether that's an American airbase or being used by the Americans, or whether it's a British airbase because it's in England. Yeah. It's inside the perimeter. Okay.
How did it get there?
But that's why we jokingly call it the American Werewolf of Alconbury, because you've got to ask yourself two things. If something is coming in from the outside onto the base, what's its motivation? If only then it runs for it.
Yeah.
Okay. Secondly, obviously it's done this several times.
Yeah.
Thirdly, could it not be something that is on the base? A person, if it was a changeling, if it was somebody that was a werewolf that physically could change into a werewolf, are they actually somebody that's on the base, and it's because they've been spotted that they
leg it
and head for the North Woods, because that's the best place for it to exit and disappear into the woods, because there's not woods all around Alconbury.
Exactly, yeah.
So it would have a knowledge of that to go that way.
So the theory here is then that it's somebody who maybe works on the base through whatever choice or however the change happens into a werewolf. It then proceeds to leave the base.
Yeah, but then it brings
to go to the forest.
But of course, I don't know if a lot of these reports were from the 70s.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, in this day and age, you've got so much surveillance. I wouldn't imagine anything to be able to get onto a base without being caught on CCTV.
Well, using another example,
I was going to say, if it was a person, a member of personnel, if they've gone out, they've obviously got to come back in again. Otherwise, they're going to be noticed they're missing.
Yeah, and are they going to be...
Are they going to end up...
Are they wearing clothes, or are they going to be, naked?
Naked.
Coming back onto the base, sorry very much.
Bit of a rough night last night down the local pub.
We don't know.
And the other thing I want to point out with these, again, the reports tend to date back to the 70s, but... Obviously, there's no detail to them to tell you whether it was, or classically, like it was the night of the full moon or the
Yeah.
lunar cycle or anything like that.
There's
not
kind
enough,
of vital bits of information. We're just drawing theories from what we do
there's
have.
There's not enough detail to really take those specific tropes of werewolves.
And I haven't heard of any recent instances at this particular site.
Interesting point. If you have any local, more recent sightings of werewolves or dogmen in Heartsbeds or Cams, please contact us. We'd love to investigate it.
Comment below, pretty please.
We are happy to come out, interview you. If you don't want to be videoed or you don't want to be identified, that's fine. But we'd love to find out about this stuff.
Yeah.
So going back to it, you kind of the motivation has got to be something. I don't know.
That's why we're throwing it around.
We're throwing it around, but it does seem to be a recurring issue.
Every instance, it's a hairy humanoid figure,
and it's been spotted by people who are either mechanics just going about their business, not expecting to have this thing creep up on them, or it's been guards which are on duty, which means that they haven't been down the local pub and had 10 pints of warm British beer.
Yeah.
so they are all they're all alert.
Yes.
Yeah, but
I mean the dogs, going back to the dogs.
Well, again,
they're going to be guard dogs. They're going to be highly trained things.
If
they're not going to get frightened at just anything.
If these are true reports without people embellishing the stories, it is very interesting that at this particular place that we are seeing a repeat manifestation.
And it would be interesting to see if in recent years or from this point onwards we see anything else.
Yeah. I mean, if it was a member of personnel, could it be... I mean, obviously we haven't got access to the records or anything like this. I don't suppose anybody has. But if you had a member of personnel who was a werewolf, they would have to be stationed there, and then they would, at some point, move away.
True.
Yeah, they'd be transferred from that place. So do the actual sightings at that point cease? Yeah. So, yeah, interesting.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if the dates correlated between the sightings of this to maybe instances of another similar base somewhere else.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's any investigations into that, whether or not there's a little correlation here.
That's okay. So, I don't know if you remember that TV series. It was called Being Human. Being Human. And the werewolf in that, in order to try not to harm people, he used to go and nip off to the local woods, and then drag a dead chicken around the woods, leaving a trail, so that when he turned into a werewolf, he would then follow this trail of the dead chicken, and just stay in the woods. So, if we really did take it on board that you've got somebody who is a werewolf who can transform, and it is a supernatural creature, being, entity, then perhaps the whole point is being on the base, being within the base, is more to make sure that they stay in a enclosed, safe area.
So that's okay. So going back to the idea that this is a more controlled, a more sentient thing, it's not like animalistic instincts of I'm going to kill anything I see. It has like a bit of thought process into, I don't want to hurt anyone, I want to run away type of deal.
Yeah.
That would allude a bit more to the werewolves from Underworld, because that kind of implicates more of they are aware of what they're doing.
Yeah, we are only using movie tropes as a descriptive way of pointing this out.
We love our movies, okay? Yeah. We do love our movies.
I mean, but movies aren't real. Okay? The thing is
I'm trying to equate it to something.
Yeah, and to do that, you can't equate that anybody knows the motivation of being a werewolf.
Yeah.
But you could understand humans, the villagers with their pitchforks, for example, seeing a creature and fearing a creature and wanting to dispatch the creature,
Yeah.
rather than if the creature itself wasn't necessarily that violent.
Yeah.
Or it could be that if you have a person that actually is cursed, if it's a paranormal, supernatural creature, and they can transform into a werewolf, perhaps it's down to the individual's personality, whether they want to just keep themselves to themselves, or whether they become a very, very violent, bloodthirsty lycanthrope, you know?
Yeah. So going back to the example about CCTV cameras that we were talking about, I think there was a particular instance in the US by a zoo where there was a very werewolfy looking creature caught on camera.
Yeah, I remember. I think we covered that in a podcast with Glenn Sharp, and that was again, that's a really good image. To me, it certainly does look like Dogman stroke werewolf.
Yeah.
However, could that be a little bit of the word I'm looking for?
I'm not sure what the word you're looking for is. Misdirection.
No. When you see something that isn't there.
Pareidolia.
Thank you, pareidolia.
Oh, it looked like okay.
Yeah, some people have said that it's a person wearing a hat.
Right. Okay. So based upon that idea, we're bringing up pareidolia again.
Yes. I always find it hard to.
Perhaps that is a good point to bring this particular instance of video up again in the future. Perhaps we can look at it, do a video on it, and see what we think.
Okay. But yeah, so I don't know. Do werewolves? Okay, let's round this particular discussion off. You've obviously got something that's been going on there. Lots of people have seen something.
Yeah,
we don't
know that.
What
we
it
know
is.
That.
All the descriptions are very similar, if not pretty much identical.
Yeah.
Something has been at RAF Alconbury. So, do you believe werewolves are real?
I feel like this is going to be a similar answer to what I've given in previous videos. The thing is, I don't want to work in definitives here because this is when we can get caught in the rabbit hole. I want to say that there's the possibility and the reasoning that they could exist is viable.
It's fine. I think you've got a lot.
It's hard. This is a hard one.
Well, you've got an awful lot of folklore that, especially in European folklore, which dates back hundreds, if not thousands, of years, of and obviously from the Anglo-Saxon time, the term werewolf, man, wolf, and you've had things like I think the biggest trial of a werewolf was in the 16th century. 1585, Peter Stump, or Stump. Yeah,
that's a fun name.
Yeah, he was a German. Bedburg, I think he was born in a place in Germany. I think it's called Bedburg. 1585. He was a farmer, and he was convicted of werewolfism and witchcraft for basically eating. I think it was 14 children and two pregnant women.
Oh.
And that was a big werewolf trial. That was.
It sounds it.
And he supposedly confessed that the devil had given him a belt. That when he put the belt on, he turned into a wolf. And devoured people.
Magic belts. Now you've heard it all.
Rather than putting, other people would put a wolf skin on and then transform into a wolf or to a bear or to a swan or whatever. So he was convicted, tortured, convicted. He was placed on a wheel where they used red hot pincers to tear his flesh from him.
That's nice.
And then they broke his arms and legs with the back end of an axe. And then he was finally beheaded. Because,
did it work?
Well, depends
on the aim, I guess.
As far as we know, he didn't come back as another werewolf. But the thing is, I mean, that was a situation that is historically account of this werewolf, this person who, Peter Stump. I think he was called Peter Stump because he actually had his left hand was cut off at one point, and he had a stump, and he said that it was because when he was in the shape of a wolf, he'd caught his paw in a trap. So I don't know, but
I think this guy was a bit mental.
Well, this is the point. Is it
unless it was real?
Is it because you have somebody who's a serial killer?
Yeah.
And then under torture comes up with a
story.
We're talking, you know.
Yeah, we're not talking.
Times.
We're not talking that there's going to be any hard evidence at this point in time, are we?
So you know, is it that these?
It's just going to be written knowledge.
Are these things, you know, based on just people's fears and trying to blame, like the Salem witch trials, trying to blame, you know, innocent women that they are witches in collusion with the devil. So you know, is it that people can be cursed, can turn into werewolves? Are there dogmen? Ultimately, have we got secret covens of werewolves and
witches
vampires and
sorcery and warlocks? But let's not forget, based upon this, humanity has only relatively come to its senses within the last 100 years. 200 years ago, witchcraft, all these things going on.
Well, to be honest, 200 years ago, talking the way we are, if somebody overheard us, then we'd probably be hauled off for being warlocks.
Exactly.
For talking about these devilish things. You know, for having images.
Devil's imagery.
Yeah. So yeah, it's
to hide the pentagram.
The pentagram. Yeah. Pentagram? What's that for?
Oh, it's just on the wall.
Yeah, it's just on the wall.
It would be a shame to put it down.
It's been there for 500 years. We weren't going to paint over it.
They really should do a sequel.
Yes, they should.
Not obviously American Werewolf in Paris, but actually a sequel like East Proctor.
East Proctor, yeah. Go back to just why the person on the moors was a werewolf. Yeah. Anyway, going a bit off track.
RAF Alconbury.
Yeah.
Do we think we are brave enough to venture forth into the permissible areas, of course?
I would do that at the moment. As we speak, we've had random drones flying around the American Air Force bases.
Oh.
And Europe is in kind of a bit of a high state of alert.
So perhaps we'll put that on the to-do list.
I don't want to be picked up as some kind of suspected Russian spy.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Yeah, okay. Maybe we'll wait for that to kind of sort itself out.
If there's any public footpaths around the base, is that what you're going to suggest?
Yes. Permissible areas.
Go for an amble around.
Yeah, I think it'd be fun.
I don't know.
It's not too far away.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I don't think there have been any recent reports, but it's been a very interesting conversation to sort of like kick around in a very short period of time. Because as I say, we could talk about this for hours in far greater detail.
Yes.
On the so many different reports for werewolves across the world.
The topic for future videos.
But this one, it's because it's on our doorstep. And we would like to know if you've got any fresh sightings, evidence. Have you seen what you think is a werewolf? Heard something that makes you think that that's a werewolf? Contact us. Put it in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.
Yep, and we'd love to make something about it.
Exactly. In the new year, because as you can see, we're a bit festive at the moment. I'm having a little drink. Christmas trees up. Yes, it's the Cryptid Adventurers Christmas special.
Are we calling it that?
I don't know.
Fair enough.
I think American Werewolf of Alconbury is pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of further videos you would like to see.
Yes. We shall see you in the next one. Oh.